I never meant to find that letter. If I hadn't been trying to surprise Caleb by getting his favorite jacket dry cleaned for our engagement photos, none of this would have happened. But there it was, folded neatly in his breast pocket, a contract that would change everything I thought I knew about my fiancé and his family. My name is Eliza, and until 10 minutes ago, I was living what I thought was a pretty perfect life. Great job as a financial analyst, gorgeous fiancé who restored historical buildings for a living, and wedding plans that were coming together beautifully. Well, mostly beautifully if you ignored my future mother-in-law Vivian's constant suggestions about everything from the venue to my dress. I stood in our bedroom, hands shaking as I read the document again. The terms were clear. Caleb had agreed to give his parents access to our joint accounts after the wedding, including my personal savings. There were even specific amounts they expected monthly, amounts that matched suspicious withdrawals I'd noticed from Caleb's account over the past year. The front door clicked open downstairs. "Babe, you home early?" I quickly folded the letter, my mind racing. "Up here," I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. Caleb appeared in the doorway, his dark hair slightly messy from the wind outside. He smiled that warm smile that usually made my knees weak. "Hey, I thought you had that big meeting today." "It got postponed," I said, watching his face carefully. "I thought I'd surprise you by taking your jacket to the cleaners." His eyes flickered to the paper in my hand, and for a split second, I saw something I'd never seen before: fear. "What's that?" he asked too casually. "You tell me," I replied, holding up the contract, "because I'd really love to know why your parents think they're entitled to my savings after we're married." The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, a car alarm went off, its shrill beeping a perfect soundtrack to the moment my perfect life started to unravel. "Eliza," he started, taking a step toward me. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I cut him off. "Because what I think is that you and your parents have been planning to use me as their personal ATM." 3 days after finding the contract, I sat across from Vivian Thornton at her mahogany dining table, watching her cut into her salmon with surgical precision. The weekly family dinner felt like a minefield tonight, with Caleb's explanations still ringing in my ears. "They're just trying to help us get started, babe. It's temporary." "Eliza, dear." Vivian's voice cut through my thoughts. "Have you considered the venue I suggested for the wedding? The country club would be perfect." I set down my fork. Actually, Caleb and I were thinking of something smaller, more intimate. Harold chuckled from the head of the table. "Nonsense. My boy's wedding needs to be an event. Besides, we're contributing significantly to your future." He winked at Caleb. My stomach turned. They didn't know I'd found the contract, but their casual entitlement made my blood boil. "About that contribution," I started, feeling Caleb tense beside me. "I think we need to discuss expectations about our finances after the wedding." The room went quiet. Vivian's knife scraped against her plate. "Oh." She dabbed her lips with her napkin. I wasn't aware there was anything to discuss. Caleb assured us everything was settled. I turned to look at my fiancé, but he was suddenly very interested in his green beans. "I just think we should be clear about boundaries," I pressed on, "especially regarding our personal accounts." "Boundaries?" Vivian's laugh was like ice cracking. "We're family, dear. There shouldn't be boundaries between family." "That's exactly when you need them most," I countered, remembering my grandmother's words from yesterday. "Love without respect is just another form of control." "I think," Caleb finally spoke, his voice strained, "we should focus on enjoying dinner." "Excellent idea," Harold boomed. "Who's for more wine?" But Vivian wasn't finished. She reached across the table, patting my hand with perfectly manicured fingers. "When you've been married as long as I have, you'll understand that family finances are a delicate dance. Sometimes the young need guidance." I pulled my hand away, catching a glimpse of something dark behind her practiced smile. "I'm a financial analyst, Vivian. I understand money just fine." The tension crackled like static electricity. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just about money, it was about power. And Vivian Thornton had no intention of letting go of hers. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut as I stared at my laptop screen. After that disastrous dinner, I'd spent days digging through public records, and there it was, Caleb's failed business venture from 2 years ago. A historical restoration project that had collapsed spectacularly, leaving him with nearly $500,000 in debt. My phone buzzed. Another message from Caleb. Can we talk? Please? I ignored it, scrolling through the court documents. The business had been dissolved right before we met, but the debt hadn't disappeared. Now I understood the suspicious transfers to his parents' accounts. They'd bailed him out. And the contract I found was their insurance policy to get paid back, using me as their personal piggy bank. The doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the peephole, I saw Caleb shifting nervously on my front porch. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. You could have told me, I said before he could speak. His face fell. You know about Renaissance restoration? $500,000, Caleb. Were you ever going to mention it? He stepped inside, running his hands through his hair. I wanted to tell you so many times, but Mom and Dad said. Of course they did. I laughed bitterly. Let me guess, they told you I'd leave if I knew the truth? They helped me when nobody else would, he defended. I owe them. You owe them, not me. But they're using your debt to control both of us. That's not fair. They're trying to protect me by stealing from me? My voice cracked. The contract gives them access to my personal savings, Caleb. Money I earned before I even met you. He wouldn't meet my eyes. It's complicated. Actually, it's very simple, I said, feeling oddly calm. You chose their control over my trust. That's not. When were you planning to tell me? After the wedding? After they drained my accounts? His silence was answer enough. Outside, a dog barked, and I remembered our talks about getting one after the wedding. Another future moment, now tainted by lies. I love you, he whispered. Isn't that enough? I touched my engagement ring, feeling its weight. Love without honesty isn't love at all, I said, echoing my grandmother's words. It's just another form of manipulation. My grandmother's cottage always smelled like lavender and fresh bread. Today, it was the only place I felt safe enough to fall apart. I sat at her kitchen table, turning my engagement ring around and around on my finger while she poured tea. You're not eating your scones, Edith said, settling into her chair. The same ones you used to devour as a child. I keep thinking I must have missed something, I said. Some sign that Caleb wasn't who I thought he was. She reached across the table, stilling my fidgeting hands. Love makes us blind to red flags, dear. Especially when they're wrapped in pretty explanations. My phone lit up, another text from Vivian. Family dinner tonight. We need to discuss the wedding plans. She won't stop, I muttered, showing Edith the message. It's like she thinks if she pretends nothing happened, it'll all go away. Because that's always worked for her before. Edith's voice held an edge I rarely heard. Did I ever tell you about your grandfather's sister? She married a man whose mother was just like Vivian. 20 years later, she had nothing left, no money, no self-respect, not even her own opinions. The tea turned bitter in my mouth. What happened to her? She disappeared one day. Left everything behind. Edith's eyes met mine. Sometimes running isn't cowardice, it's survival. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Caleb. Mom's worried about you. Please come tonight. We can fix this. He still doesn't get it, I said, feeling the weight of my ring like a shackle. He thinks this is just about money. It's about power, Edith corrected. And the people who abuse it never think they're doing anything wrong. I stood up suddenly, walking to her window. Outside, spring flowers were pushing through the soil, stubborn, determined to grow despite the lingering frost. I love him, Grandma, I whispered. But I'm starting to think that's not enough. Love without respect, she began, is just another form of control, I finished, finally sliding the ring off my finger. It sat on her windowsill, catching the afternoon light, beautiful and empty of all the promises it once held. I stood in our half-packed apartment, staring at the wedding invitation samples scattered across the kitchen counter. Caleb was due home any minute, and I'd made my decision. The engagement ring felt heavy in my pocket, where I'd kept it since leaving Grandma Edith's yesterday. The key turned in the lock. "Eliza?" Caleb called out. "Mom's been trying to reach you about the—" "I'm not going through with it." I cut him off. "Any of it." He froze in the doorway, taking in the boxes I'd started packing. "What are you doing?" "Setting boundaries." My voice was steadier than I felt. "Either you tell your parents the wedding is off until we resolve this, or I'm walking away completely." His phone buzzed. Vivian's face lit up the screen. "Don't answer that," I said. He stared at the phone, then at me. "She's just worried about losing control." I picked up the contract from the counter. "I had my lawyer look at this. It's not just about your debt, Caleb. They've structured it so they can access everything, my savings, my inheritance, even my future earnings." "They wouldn't, actually. They already are." I threw the bank statements at him. $3,000 last month. $5,000 the month before. "When does it end?" His phone buzzed again. And again. "They're suffocating us," I said softly. "And you're letting them." He reached for me, but I stepped back. "I'll talk to them," he promised. "Just give me time." Time isn't the problem. Courage is. His phone rang again. This time, he answered. "Mom, I can't talk right now." I could hear Vivian's voice, shrill through the speaker. "Caleb, darling, your father and I are coming over. We need to discuss Eliza's concerning behavior." I grabbed my pre-packed overnight bag from behind the counter. "When you're ready to choose us over them, you know where to find me." "Eliza, wait." But I was already walking out the door, leaving behind the wedding invitations, the manipulations, and the man who couldn't choose between his mother's control and my love. Behind me, I heard Vivian's voice growing louder through the phone. "Caleb? Caleb, are you listening to me?" He always was. That was the problem. The travel agency's confirmation email for my solo trip to Italy sat in my inbox, a desperate attempt at escape. I'd been staying at Grandma Edith's for a week when Vivian's text arrived. "Family meeting. Tonight. 7 p.m. We need to discuss your behavior." I shouldn't have gone, but something in me needed this final confrontation. Walking into the Thorntons' house, I found not just Vivian and Harold, but Caleb and 3 other relatives. An intervention. Perfectly staged. "Darling." Vivian rose, arms outstretched. "We're all here because we're concerned." I remained standing. "About what, exactly?" "This ridiculous rebellion." She gestured at my packed bag by the door. "Running away to Italy? Breaking poor Caleb's heart." "Mom." Caleb started, but Harold cut him off. "You're throwing away a perfect match," Harold boomed. "Over a simple financial arrangement?" "Simple?" I laughed. "You tried to steal my inheritance." "We were protecting family assets." Vivian snapped, mask slipping. "Something you clearly don't understand." "The only thing I understand is manipulation." I turned to Caleb. "Did you know about this ambush?" His silence was deafening. "Of course he did." Vivian smiled. "He agrees you need help." Something broke inside me. "Help? You want to talk about help?" I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. "Let's discuss the $70,000 you've already taken from Caleb's accounts. Money he needed to pay his own debt, not fund your country club membership." The room went silent. Caleb's head snapped up. "What?" he whispered. "Oh, didn't they tell you?" I showed him my screen. I tracked the transfers. They weren't paying off your business debt. They were funding their lifestyle. Vivian's face turned scarlet. "How dare you?" "No. How dare you?" I shot back. "You used his failure to control him, then used him to try to control me." "Eliza." Caleb reached for me, but I stepped away. "Don't. You had your chance to choose." I grabbed my bag. "Enjoy your perfect family dynamic. I'm done being your aide." "If you walk out that door," Vivian called after me, "don't expect to be welcomed back." I paused in the doorway, remembering all the dreams I'd had for this family. "That's the point, Vivian. I don't want to be." The door closed behind me with a final click, leaving only the sound of my heartbeat and the crushing weight of everything I'd lost. 2 weeks into my Italian escape, I found Caleb's letter waiting in my hotel room. Not an email or text, an actual handwritten letter, delivered to my hotel in Florence. The familiar sight of his architect's precise handwriting made my hands shake. "I've moved out," it began. "Not just from our apartment, but from their influence." I sank onto the bed, the Tuscan sunset painting the walls orange as I read on. "I confronted them about the money after you left. Dad tried to justify it, but Mom finally broke down. She admitted everything. How they'd used my failure to keep me dependent, how they planned to do the same to you." I've never seen her cry like that before. Or tell the truth. A knock at my door made me jump. I opened it to find Vivian Thornton herself, looking smaller somehow, without her usual perfect composure. "How did you?" "Caleb told me," she said quietly. "May I come in?" Every instinct screamed to slam the door, but something in her face stopped me. I stepped aside. "I thought I was protecting him," she said, standing awkwardly in my hotel room. "From failure. From pain. From losing him. By stealing from him? By controlling him." Her voice cracked. "I watched my own mother lose everything to a man who abandoned her. I swore I'd never be powerless like that. Instead, I became exactly what I feared." "Why are you here?" "Because Caleb won't come home. He says he needs to prove himself without our help." She pulled out a check. "This is everything we took plus interest. He wouldn't accept it." I stared at the check, then back at her. "You flew to Italy to give me money?" "I flew to Italy to give you an apology." She set the check on the table. "And to tell you that Caleb really has changed. He's stronger now. Like you." "I didn't want him to be stronger," I said. "I just wanted him to be honest." "I know." She moved toward the door. "That's why he deserves you. And why I didn't." She left before I could respond, leaving me with a check, a letter, and the realization that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't making others suffer, it's forcing them to face their own truth. 6 months after Italy, I sat in my grandmother's garden, watching autumn leaves dance across her lawn. My new apartment was almost finished being furnished, and my promotion at work had come through last week. Life had moved on, reshaped itself into something different but stronger. "He's been asking about you," Grandma Edith said, setting down a cup of her signature lavender tea. He's been doing restoration work on the old library downtown." I nodded, unsurprised. Our small town had a way of keeping people connected, even when they were trying to stay apart. "I know," I said. "I saw him there yesterday. He's doing good work." "Did you speak to him?"
No.
I wrapped my hands around the warm cup, but I saw the plans posted outside. "He's doing it independently. No family money involved." Edith smiled knowingly. Sometimes the strongest walls aren't the ones we build around ourselves, but the ones we tear down.
The doorbell rang.
Through the window, I caught sight of Caleb on the porch, holding a familiar blue folder. Our original house plans. The ones we'd drawn up together before everything fell apart. "I'll leave you two to talk," Edith said, heading inside. I met Caleb on the porch. He looked different, older somehow, but lighter too. "I got approved for the restoration project loan," he said without preamble. "On my own merit. No cosigners, no family connections." "Congratulations." "Mom's in therapy," he added quietly.
Dad, too.
"They're trying." I nodded, remembering Vivian's tears in Florence. "And you?" "I'm learning who I am without them defining me." He held out the folder. "These were your dreams too. I thought you should have them." I took the folder, but didn't open it. Some blueprints belonged in the past. "We could draw new ones," he suggested carefully. "Someday. When we're both ready." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something I'd always hoped for but never quite believed in: growth. "Someday?" I agreed, and for the first time in months, it felt like a promise rather than an escape. Behind us, the autumn leaves kept falling, covering the old ground with new possibilities.